Hey guys, I'm Chris,
And Mike,
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, the Thriller Podcast. How you doing today, Mike?
dude, I'm ready to talk about one of the biggest comebacks in all history, greater than Tiger Woods and the 2019 Masters, greater than the Red Sox 2004 over the Yankees, but better than the America's Cup 2013 and the sailing team. Dude, one of the best comebacks in history, Don Bentley and Forgotten War. This book is insane.
So we are literally 20, I don't know when this is going to come out, a week after Hostile Intent, whatever. We are recording 24 hours after recording that. And it's like a whiplash. It's a complete
Yeah.
180.
Yeah.
Hey, there's so much I want to talk about this book. And I think obviously very important to him. And he even, puts in an author's note at the end, which none of his other books had. And
Right.
where he mentions, I just felt like it's important to sort of start with that. He mentions that as soon as he started, seeing everything unfold on TV, texting with his brother, and understanding or trying to understand what was going on, he knew that this was going to feature prominently in his next novel. Even though he had already, he even says it right. He'd already set the Ukrainian invasion before this, even though they happened in different timelines. But I think him wanting to do this, like I kind of mentioned it yesterday in the last pod, it's almost like a love letter or like a love letter, but also like a therapy letter to,
Hmm.
break down and try to understand. And he says that a lot of the sentiment that he puts into either, Matt's head or any of the other, comrades that we meet, whether it's Jason, whether it's Frodo, whether it's the ragtag quick reaction force of civilians, ex military that are over there that form this like ragtag group for him.
It's unreal.
It's unreal, and it's like by having those real life conversations with those people and being able to put all that knowledge into this novel
Yeah.
and like to lay it all out there on the ground, mind you, also to have like a pretty like a banging plot
Yeah.
and cover to cover action.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. It's a great book. It's a great, probably. I think no, it is my favorite Matt Drake novel that we
Dude,
read so far.
I'm going to go a step further. It is not only my favorite Matt Drake novel, it's the best book we've read in a long time on this podcast. Best thriller, let me put it that way. We've been going out of our genre a little bit, but getting back to the espionage, military style thriller, Don Bentley is putting on a masterclass with this
Yeah,
book. This is one of the best books we've read on this podcast, period. Definitely one of the best thrillers we've read on this podcast. You mentioned the plot and the action. Give it a 10 out of 10 right now. We can like shuffle that away. And that doesn't even matter. That's not what makes this book great. It's like you said, how personal it is to
yeah.
Don. And by being personal through Don, it's ergo every service member who's touched Afghanistan, every family member who's had somebody. It's unbelievable the depths he's going to via these characters. And to do it with characters I'm already so invested in, it's the perfect vehicle to do that. It's the perfect canvas to paint that story on, to spread those emotions out on. And it hits so hard on many, many levels. The author's note, he honestly, it was a great touch. He honestly doesn't even need to say that because it was all so clear. I knew when he made, honestly, as big a character as D, who I loved, and Garrett and Jason and everybody, or as small as a character as that teenage girl working at the Bagram or the other airport, I think it was Hamid Airport, just sitting at a table trying to manage the chaos, direct people a certain way with these bloodshot eyes and these wrinkles in her face. He's like, she could be 16 years old and she's sitting here managing this. There's your hero right there. And
Mhm.
don't even get me started on the the lady running the airport, like organizing all the operations.
The captain.
Belvina, yeah.
Belvina.
The African refugee who's now in our military. Holy cow, even these little characters take on a massive persona that hits on so many levels, means so much, and is grounded in the reality of folks that Don knows, that have served, that have contributed in their own way. He is literally covering so many bases of experience, talk lived experience of people and how this thing touched them. And he's doing it in such an amazing way. Hats off. Hats off. I mean, we're going to say a bunch of winners on this podcast. Let's get out of the way. Don Bentley just going digging deep on this one and giving the audience an amazing novel that honestly transcends. I think it transcends the genre. It's doing so much more than telling a kick-ass Matt Drake story. It's doing so much more than that.
Yeah, and you kind of like were touching on it, but he's already done a great job to try to get us to buy in to the main characters and the Frodo, the Glass, the Drake, his wife, Catherine, all these other characters, obviously, that ancillary were bought into them.
Yep.
But then to take that the next level, and then every single character that we meet,
perfect.
I'm feeling for. And I'm going to say right now, the winner of this book for me is Garrett.
Dude.
I hated him when he came in.
Man.
But then you kind of, as Don like unfolds him,
yes,
as a character, like
when
through either like Drake's ribbing, finding out that he was a part of like the lone that he was behind the lone survivor helicopter.
Right.
Like obviously he's going to be messed up from that, and then he has his shining moment.
Yes,
he's going to do SEAL stuff. SEALs let SEALs be SEALs, and swims, saves them out of the cave. Comes back, is able to allow Drake to not allow a person to, I guess Garrett dies, but not allow a female to die in this novel, right?
Yeah.
And then, it hit me hard when he got shot by the sniper at the end.
Dude, it really did.
And then what even hit me like even harder was that Kazir, who again, I had bought into him, like, because he represented every single person over there who wanted a better life for himself, decided that the Taliban was not the way to go. I'm going to help the Americans. He is the reason why all of these civilians felt. I listened to this really good podcast by on the Daily on the New York Times where it followed a service member, could be like a Jason type character, Green Beret, who had worked with interpreters, and it walked you through his struggle to get his interpreter back, just by making phone calls and stuff like that. But when he's sitting next to the casket, draped in an American flag, like that symbol just like stuck out in my head. I don't know. I'm gonna say right now, 5 out of 5. The Frogman, Garrett,
dude,
is my winner.
It's a great pick. You can equally go Belvina, like I mentioned.
Yeah, exactly.
Zafir,
you could too.
Zafir sitting at the casket is like her on the fence, on the wall when the suicide.
Yeah, why is she on the wall? Because she had to be.
She's giving her guys a break. She's literally standing in. She's subbing in for somebody because that's what a leader does. And there she goes. She was the 13th name on the list. And dude, D the pilot,
great character.
Great character. Whether it's a character we had 5 pages with, like I said, that teenager girl at the desk also is haunting me. Whether it's a character we had 10 seconds with, maybe a sentence or 2 with, or a character who was with us the whole book, every single one of them means something to me. And they're all unique. The Rangers and the SEALs and the other, and they shit on the Air Force a few times.
They even have you have the professor. He was a cool guy.
You got the professor. And the professor had the knowledge about the caves from the Genghis Khan days, the Mongolian horde, which then allows the SEAL to be the SEAL and jump into the water. Everything landed. You get a touch of Brad Thor, right? With the historical aspect in finding this passage. You get a little bit of everything. I mean, honestly, this is like Andrews and Wilson because they're also military guys, but Navy guys. Sorry,
Mhm.
Don. And they can write a kick-ass action scene where you feel like you're part of that unit on the ground downrange. It's got Jack Carr because Don Bentley can hold his own with the weapons, the descriptions, the tactics, the battlefield, maneuvering. It's got the Vince Flynn depth of characters. The Vince could do that to you. He can make you love a character or hate a character, but he always brought out the emotions from the reader for that person. Every character was a human.
Mhm.
They were a person, a real life person we could identify with in some way. And then he's also just got Don Bentley's voice that he created, whether
Right.
it's the Layla storyline and the baby. Because let's remember, opening this book, I didn't think it had a lot of action, yet I enjoyed the heck out of the first 5-7 chapters.
I know you texted me like right away. You're like, I'm hooked. I'm saved. I needed it. I needed this after the last book.
I was hooked off the bat, and it didn't take the whole scene of him driving off the cliff and being submerged underwater. Really cool, right? And he's got to get out by shooting the window. Like all these things were amazing. But I didn't even need that action simply because I loved Layla's background. I think I've been craving to get more of. And when we meet her parents and the dynamic between her and her mom, then we hear about this cousin at the wedding. I wanted her background being from this region to play a role, and this was the perfect way to do that and set that during the American withdrawal. That's really going to mess with Don, because that withdrawal is hitting on Frodo a certain way, as we see in the end, but it's also hitting on Don in a different way because it's his wife's heritage. That's another piece of the puzzle, and his baby daughter's heritage. So that's another piece for him. And I just think right off the bat, whether it's the storytelling, the relationship building, the personal stakes for the characters, we don't need a nuke suitcase, right? We don't need the jihadis getting prepped the suicide bomb that's going to go off at the airport. We don't need the world-ending stakes, the big explosion. We need the stakes of he's got this baby girl on the way that he loves desperately. We need the stakes of Frodo taking the hit, being framed, and professing guilty of something he didn't do. The stakes of that are why. There must be a reason, and we learn it in the end. And then the other, you might even call it a mini plot, saving the cousin. I was so glad it didn't become Matt Drake is a super ubermensch. He's the ubermensch.
He worked it in. It made sense.
Yeah, it's not going to be a coincidence. They kept her in the same cell as they did Zephyr. She was there, going to be a sex slave for the guys watching Zephyr. Something that just makes you scratch your head and go, well, I guess that's a good coincidence. Might as well. No, he had the Pineapple Express go save her. He had to make a decision to let go and trust others and believe in this network of people under the leadership of that lady who's running the evacuation. And then you throw in what's his name, the guy, or Joe hanging around the airport, and he's really leading this Pineapple Express when we meet him at the coffee maker. I could just keep going about everything in this book. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, interesting you brought up the the whole family like subplot. In the beginning, I kind of was like, all right, where's he going with this? I immediately my mind was going to like Taken, like that kind of thing. Like,
well, the Apostle, the hostage rescue in Afghanistan, the Apostle. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, all right, how is he going to wheel this in?
That's very narrow. Yeah.
It's very narrow. Okay. But then when we obviously there's some plot going on with, and then you have the Chinese, and I'm like, how are these two going to intertwine? And obviously he says he's got to go over there and get both this interpreter or, worker and the girl. And I loved the fact that he didn't actually get the girl. He relied on other people. It was like, I feel like Don put that in there because he wanted to showcase like actual stuff that was happening, like how things will work. You have the people over here in America who, have their relatives back home. They're worried sick.
Yep.
We meet the father, right?
Yep.
Who in a second time after the parents come, and he's just like sullen, and he's like, he even says like, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to go.
Yeah. Even though he's a schmo,
like what, he's a computer programmer. Like, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
Like,
but Drake gets it.
It's grounded in reality.
Exactly.
And then to have it be where, all right, she actually gets out through this network that Drake has to rely on because he has this other mission set, which makes complete sense. Like the fact that they don't have to intertwine is
Exactly.
the beauty of it.
It's
Yeah.
so great. It's so great. Don't force the coincidences. And
Yeah, no, I know.
and I think
It's
the reason I'm saying this is a comeback, I gotta say, I think Hostile Intent not only forced coincidences, it forced the Ukraine stuff, where here
mm,
Afghanistan was so meaningfully done. That just seemed a little forced to be topical.
it's a subject matter that I feel like Don knows better, you know?
Well, sure, he's just more intimately involved and aware of it. But also just with the storytelling, it was almost pigeonholed into we have to do this because this is a thing right now and
Sure.
let's explore it. Where Afghanistan, he had something he wanted to say already. And let the novel, like I said, be that canvas for it instead of forcing, something out onto that canvas. You can just let it flow. Yeah, coming off that last book, it's just like, I'm going to admit, you and I at one point were like, okay, we liked The Outside Man. We liked The Outside Man.
Mm-hmm.
The Outside Man did enough, especially through Mr. Suave and whatnot, to let us know, yeah, Don can take over the Mitch-Rapp series, right?
Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Without
Sanction? Absolutely. Yeah. But we were like,
I was a little worried.
We're like, let's see what comes next. Because after The Outside Man, we're like, yeah, he's got it. But I still want a little more proof, if you will, right? I want to really feel confident here. You read Hostile Intent, and we both text each other. We're like, uh-oh. But, dude, no worries after this one. That's why I said the comeback before.
Every author is going to, not every story hits for every reader.
Exactly.
Know? So Vince had his books we didn't love.
That's right.
Kyle had his books we didn't love.
That's right.
But I think 3 out of the 4 with one and possibly 2 being very good novels, I have full faith that in Don's ability to take on the Mitch-Rapp world.
Yeah, and I want to stay on this book, but let me ask you, do you think I'm a prisoner of the moment or being hyperbolic saying this might be one of the best thrillers in the genre we've ever read? I don't know. I think I'm being honest with that.
It reminds me of like Memorial Day status. Like that, like that might be going a little too far, but
no, actually, I don't think so, because you look at Memorial Day in scope of the Mitch-Rapp series, it's actually kind of a standalone. It's a little less intertwined with the Mitch-Rapp universe.
Yeah.
Like not a lot of Irene, no Scott Coleman, I don't think, and so it almost is a great novel on its own. But it doesn't relate to the series all that much. I feel like this one is both a great novel on its own. God, I'd want to share this with people who never even heard of Matt Drake. I wonder how the Frodo stuff would hit, and like knowing who Matt Drake is, if you're bought into his wife and their relationship and the baby. Probably. But this one works not only as a semi-standalone like Memorial Day does, it also elevates and makes everything you know about Matt Drake in the series better. So in some ways, I want to compare it to Memorial Day. And I hate to say it, in some ways, it might be even more impressive.
Really?
I don't know if I'll say better, but it's maybe more impressive in some ways.
Different.
The personal touch.
Yeah, the personal touch. Yeah. I don't know. Just you're right in saying that it's one of the best thriller novels we've covered. I'm 100% confident in saying that it's one of the best thriller novels we've read on this feed.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into comparisons. This book deserves its moment. We should talk about it. We covered so much already, and I feel like
let's just go through the scorecard and start pulling out maybe some favorite scenes that we liked in the context of the scorecard.
Yeah, I like that, and a couple we haven't even mentioned. Frodo getting taken, right? The whole drama.
Right. So that's like, if I'm going to ding the book in any way, and maybe you can just explain it to me. I don't understand, why was he set up to go to prison? The Chinese did that?
So I'll agree with you. This was almost going to be one of my dings. Probably could still be a ding. There's little things like this that I think make me not want to say 50 out of 50.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm quick to do it. You told me to slow down. This could be one of them, but it really does check out for me, and I actually love the intricacies of this. There was one line towards the end, it was pretty late, when Catherine is explaining what she's seeing on her end of how the Chinese play into all this. And the Chinese thing could have really, I think, pushed away some readers. It could have come out of left field for some. But to me, it worked in that they were secretly meeting with the Taliban council, or excuse me, the Afghan councils.
I got that. Mm-hmm.
So they were doing something to most likely undermine us. And Drake and Frodo all of a sudden jump on this hit. What was it, 10, 11 years ago, 2011? They jump onto this hit to embed with this team. And while they're there, they go into a raid where the Chinese guy, his informants, are the target, or the informant is the target. Kali, is that the bad guy's name? Kari, and he was the thing. Everybody who knew about that mission and that he was the target package, the Chinese wanted to kill because they had information linking them to Fong.
Yeah, I got all that. Yeah, and that's why all of a sudden all the other this is
the other guy started dying, getting hit.
The beginning of the novel is all like it's a mystery novel.
It is,
yeah, like where Drake's trying to figure this out. Like, all right, this guy died. Frodo's in prison. They just try to kill me. Now I need to go find potentially the last remaining link when he happens to show up, which the farm scene. We haven't even talked about the farm scene.
Dude.
Llama down.
Llama down. Oh, man. Hiding behind goats. That was wild.
To see Jason.
That was hitting Jason's house, right? Trying to find Jason. Yeah.
But I just, maybe I just missed it because I was listening to it, 1.75 speed, and you were listening to it on 3.5 speed. But I guess you could just explain it away that the Chinese somehow finagled to put him into prison. I thought in the beginning that it was someone in our government who was trying to cover this up. Like that's what I was trying to figure out. In the end, I didn't really care because in the end, like again, in the epilogue, you get Frodo's admission about how another instance of not just Afghanistan, but like
he felt responsible.
Any soldiers, most soldiers are going to have some moment, if they don't, like, more credit to them, but most soldiers who are put in that situation potentially have a moment like this where they feel responsible for something. And in this case, it's Frodo. He felt responsible for murder of one of the other Green Berets who died the very next day because he didn't speak up to say, hey, he's not willing to, he killed this guy by accident.
Yeah.
So he shouldn't be going on any more missions.
Yeah. He didn't protect him. Didn't listen to him. Yeah.
In the end, like I didn't care about like the logistics of like why Frodo was locked up because of, everything else kind of jived. And in the end, like Don kind of got this one final message of grief and like,
that conversation.
But to me, like the whole time I'm wondering, I'm like, in the beginning, I'm like, is someone in our government trying to cover this up? Like what is going on here?
Right,
it adds just another element of mystery, intrigue, and maybe that's just what Don was going for. So
maybe you're right. Recalling it, I thought those two things matched up a lot more than maybe they actually do now looking at it. But in the moment, I did like Catherine's read on the situation. She was able to break it down to Drake. And like something about that made sense to me in the moment. Maybe when you kind of pick it apart, I'm like, how do those two things relate? Did they want him to... They wanted to basically shush him. But why not kill him?
Yeah, that's what my whole thing is.
Why not kill him?
Why would you just kill him like you killed the other guy? And you're going to kill Matt Drake? Like...
Yeah. Interesting. Unless there is a shadowy figure doing something in the U.S. government.
Could be.
That's somehow related to this Chinese stuff. Interesting. I think I'd have to think about it more, but it should have been painted. The picture should have been painted a little clearer. And why not just kill Drake? There's so many ways to kill Drake. There were so many opportunities. The car thing was only one attempt, but I feel like they would have made another attempt if they were that committed.
Yeah.
There was no other attempt on him when there definitely were opportunities.
Oh, maybe. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe they weren't trying to kill Drake. They just knew that someone was going to come visit Frodo. Maybe they didn't know all the people that were involved in that raid. They knew like some people.
Oh,
they didn't know
all the people on their list.
They don't know all the people that were
Tangentially connected.
maybe that knew about this. People
Yeah.
talked,
Yeah.
and if they got him locked up, someone would come like talk to him, and that's why he got hit after he talked to him at the airport.
After he talked.
Now after you're talking about the prison,
Yeah.
that's probably it.
Because I'm like, wait, why would they hit him if then later on in the book they say he wasn't on the hit list because he was outside the
He was
building
outside. Yeah,
and
yeah.
wouldn't have actually been read in?
No,
But
he only got hit because he visited Frodo in
because
prison.
he visited Frodo, but he did it undercover. I
He
wonder if
used his
still there's a
he used
shadowy.
his he used his DIA
Oh, he did use
credentials.
his DIA
Yeah,
credentials. That's right. Because Rollins told him off when
he said he was going to use his.
he
Yeah.
called him as like, I'm going to use yours. And Rollins was like, fuck off, dude. He was pissed at him. Yeah.
All right.
Maybe
Now that
that's
I'm
why
like,
they added. Maybe that's why they tried to hit Drake. That's a good point. Yeah, I like that theory.
anyways,
And to be in the database to know that Drake visited, there's got to be someone spreading that information, right, to the Chinese. So the shadowy figure theory could still apply.
So this is kind of tangentially related. Where do we go from here?
It's a
Is
great question.
Don done? Do we know if Don's done writing Matt Drake novels?
I don't know. I don't think so. Something we'll have to see if he's mentioned in any recent interviews or ask him ourselves. I think he's got to really just hone in on Mitch Rapp for a little bit. And it's only a 1-book contract, right, for Rapp. So we got to see what happens. I think it's just too early to know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has.
I'm excited to see where Matt Drake goes next.
Yeah. I don't know if he has a contract, for another Matt Drake or whatever, because this is not Simon and Schuster, I don't think. Matt Drake isn't an Emily Bessler lineup, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. So I don't know. I feel like there's some legalese that needs to happen to kind of sort out what that's going to look like. And then he's also got the Clancy Jack Ryan Jr. universe that he's dabbled in. So yeah, we're going to have to get some answers there and see what his plans are for the future.
Yeah, he has 4 of each.
Yeah.
All right, let's do the scorecard. Action. I mean, it's a 10, but what are your favorite action scenes?
I think Bamiyan was so much fun because the City of Screams I had heard about, actually.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and you were saying you heard a podcast about our operators trying to track down their guys, their translators, their informants, their locals, and try to protect them during the withdrawal. Similarly, in my class, whenever we teach Afghanistan, I have a really good resource. It's this travel blogger who spent a lot of time in the country. One of his tour guides, he's a father, and he's from Bamiyan, and they're ethnically very different than, I believe, the Pashtuns out in that region, and it's a pretty far away part of the country. And this travel blogger did a whole documentary, going around and seeing all the areas. And they're in Bamiyan, and they visit that citadel, and it's really cool. There's like these roads literally up, looks like a pyramid, almost like a natural hill pyramid, with all these old buildings and this town up top. And I remember them driving up it, and one of my kids asked me in class, because we had just also covered recent events and news of the withdrawal, and he goes, "What happened to them?" I was like, "Oh my God, like, we know they were targeted for their ethnicity. This is also a part of the country I think has a lot of history of Buddhism and things, and they were targeted by the Taliban big time." And thankfully, we looked into it. The tour guide who gave this blogger the tour in this video, he and his family were on the last plane out before the suicide attacks. So all that's just running through my mind. And when the kid asked me, he's like, I remember them going up the City of Screams. He's talking about Genghis Khan. They're talking about the Mongolian invasion. He's explaining why it's called the City of Screams as they go up the citadel, and the whole story that was here, the real history that they talk about. I remember in this video, and one of the kids asked me, he's like, "What happened to them after the withdrawal?" And I was just like, I was floored by that question because I didn't know. And here I am like showing this video of like this guy who and his family might be dead for talking to this
Right.
Westerner, this American, and making this video that we're all watching. And I'm like, oh my God. And then later found out they I think are
They
in,
did make it out. Okay.
yeah, they got out and I think they're in the UK now. So I was just like, oh my God. But anyway, I really love that whole action piece because you also had the drones.
Yeah.
D-kamikazes, their drones, who's dropping these mortars. I just thought that was a whole lot of fun. And that really, I think, kicks off. It actually might be the big set action piece, to be honest, but it's not even the ending because then it kicks off the whole Zafir still gets captured. He turns himself in to sacrifice his family and these guys to get away, which is incredible. And it almost could have worked as the climactic action piece, and you end the book right there. Like that really was set to be a huge action piece. I'm glad there was more. I wanted a little more story, and we got it. But I think that was my favorite.
Mm. That's a good one. I think I gotta go. I think I gotta go farm scene. Like
The
just
farm, yeah.
having, we first meet Dee, her interactions with Drake, and him like being this one man Rambo. He even quotes Rambo, right?
He does. He quotes
Um,
Rambo to class.
going in to the situation, and I love like when he's like, man, Jason has a lot of like potted plants, and then boom, the potted plants are all
Boom.
they're, housing explosives
Yeah.
to protect him. And then just the whole like the comedy of errors with the dog and the
Yes.
llama and the goats. And I think it's pretty apt that like Jason spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, and then he decides to come back and become a goat farmer, like,
A
which is
homesteader, yeah.
yeah. So that to me was one of my favorite action scenes. But I mean, you could pick like any of them, even like the second attack. After when they decide like, oh, he's actually down here, and then they go and dress up as native. They go native,
Right,
put
right.
the attack on him, put the assault.
Yeah.
Um,
That was
they get
cool.
it, they get out, and then like the whole Apache scene with like I'm looking up like what a douchka is,
Yeah.
and he's everyone get out of here. I'll save my
He
I'll
nearly sacrifices
he
himself
sacrifices himself, yeah, so everyone can get on the Apaches.
when that minigun is ripping him to shreds.
Yeah,
Whoa.
you can pick the earlier in the novel with you mentioned it the scene where it's a little bit of actiony, but he
The
has to
car.
shoot his way out of the car. Like that was
Yep.
kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah, and one thing you made me think of with that scene right before he's getting torn to shreds, trying to get the choppers to lift off. He goes through the Chinese convoy and stares them down. I swear, dude, as soon as he dropped that dime of wisdom to Fong, I was like, that was Sun Tzu. I was like, it has to be. He says
And it
something to
was.
convince Fong to
Yeah.
let him through. And then later on, he's like, you must have said something really impressive. He's like, I quoted Sun Tzu. I'm like, nailed it.
Oh, we didn't even talk about the flashback action sequence.
Oh, right.
Which we get like
Right.
right in the middle of the novel where we go back to that raid that,
Exactly.
Frodo's being framed for this murder, and just getting that, like, amazing. Again,
Yeah.
Don is great. Like you said, has the tactical chops to throw in all of this weaponry, other
Yep.
stuff.
The legend
then-
of Frodo, too, is
Right.
built up.
Build up that
Everyone knows him. Yeah.
he almost has this I guess it's almost like a Black Hawk Down,
Right.
because those were two Delta snipers who
Right.
went up, but they ended up dying. But
He became legendary for what he did
Right.
there.
mhm.
It also kind of shows you how Frodo already had that, and Drake has to not prove himself, but like even Drake is like, I'm operating here with Frodo, like the man, the myth, the legend, Frodo. And over the course of what they're doing in that flashback, Frodo learns to see like, yo, Drake has the chops. And
Right.
Drake's even at one point like, yo, he told me I was good. Frodo told me I was good. Like
Right.
that's cool.
No, it's good seeing that early dynamic.
Yeah. It also helps when they're explaining later what happened with Dan and the other guy and, how he got killed. And it helped. I almost wish that connection was made a little deeper earlier when we're seeing the flashback, just because it helped when Frodo explained it at the end. But the flashback was so far long ago.
Right.
It could have
Right.
been revisited like one more time in between to remind us this is what these guys have been through, and they lost a guy on that op, and turns out they lost two guys because Frodo knew he felt responsible for not helping out the other guy who
Sure.
accidentally shot him. I thought the link between the flashback and Frodo's conversation in the epilogue just could have had a little more connective tissue in between somewhere.
Yeah, I see that.
It
So,
worked, but that flashback could have been revisited, I think, just to make it a little more present towards the ending.
yeah, maybe if you had like drawn it out over the course of like we kept going back to it, instead of just getting it
Yeah,
all in
but
one
then you're
one.
jumping around a lot, so I could
True.
see
Then you're
that.
jumping.
I could see that having downsides as well. But yeah, I wanted a bit of that. It would have been hard to do, but I wanted a bit of that. Where do you end on action then? We just recalled a couple
Oh,
of really good scenes.
it's a 10 for me. It's
Yeah,
10.
I'm going to go with 10 as well. Now, we came up with some plot things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 9 on the plot,
Yeah.
just because there are like some things if you pull or stare too closely, think about it. I think like in the moment coming right off the book, I was like, but now if I like think back about a certain things, you could dig it. There's something. I would go 9. What about you? You're going 10?
Yeah. I think I want to go 10 because I'm thinking holistically about it. It really checks out. It's only, these two bozos here with a podcast for the second night in a row, back to back at 10 p.m., finding these things. You know what? That's why my buy-in's going to be higher, because I was bought in the moment. And those, if you can consider that a plot hole, it wasn't present to me as I was reading. So if indeed there are plot holes, I'm not sure there are, but you and I had some questions that could have been cleared up. I'll ding it here half a point to a 9.5 because buy-in, I still want to go high. Like you said, I listened to this book straight through on 3.5 speed. And most of the time where I do that, it's just because we got to rip through something I'm not that interested in. It's just I got to get to the finish line.
You probably benefit from going back and listening to this again.
No, I want to go back and listen to it 3 more times for sure. But I'm not going to want to put it down. Like listen on one speed and I won't put it down. Listen on 3.5 speed, I won't put it down. Doesn't even matter. I was bought in that much. So I'm going to go 5 on buy-in for that reason. No issues, plot holes, misconceptions pop up as you're reading it because it's so damn enthralling. My one other reason to go high on buy-in, and you asked me what's next, I was 1,000,000,000% bought in to Sam Blackwell. The way he's
there's that little tidbit at the end where he's like, I got to go see
Correct.
Sam. So is he getting out of the DIA? Like,
come work for me.
Yeah.
And Glass isn't in this book a lot, and he ignores Glass.
He does.
That was a big one. And there was even another operator at some point, maybe Jason or somebody, I don't remember who exactly, who's like, if you work for DIA and this isn't a sponsored mission.
It was Joe. It was Joe.
He's like, what are you doing here if your boss and you're in good standing with your employer for the U.S. government didn't send you? He goes, I ignored them. And like Joe's got to think like, can I trust this guy? What's his integrity like? And that was a big step for Drake because he's blurred the edges a bit with Glass in the past. But this is the first time he found the confidence just flat out say no to him.
Yeah, and at the end he turns off his phone.
And he turns off, so he ghosts him. So
ignores him again. Yeah.
I'm wondering if this Blackwell character coming in is gonna take over with that little "I want you to work for me." But I'm bought in because he's described as this former presidential candidate.
Get stuff done.
He wanted to get stuff done. He wants to cut through the tape. And then after he wasn't really totally successful in politics, he just said, I'm going to use my influence, my wealth to do the right thing under the radar. A lot of celebrities go to Afghanistan for photo ops and whatnot. And they're opening this school. Oh God, how the Taliban's using that school. Just, oh. And we're going to have to get to villains in a minute because we didn't talk the scene at the school. That's going to be our bad guys villain talk. But I was bought into how Sam instead chose to just fund the projects and the people who he believed in to do the right thing. No questions asked, no photo ops, no publicity. Just the guy in the shadows who we need funding and operating. What guys like Drake got to do. So I was bought into his introduction. Yeah. You could be like, how is he going to fly there? And why does he have a private plane? And how does he get there? I was bought in. You sold me on it.
No, I was too. Behind's a five.
Yep.
It's in the moment. That's why I'm digging in on the plot, like the
Sure.
plot holes after the fact.
I
So
hear you.
yeah, I to address one point that we talked about last night. In the beginning, we were kind of questioning. All right, we didn't like Hostile Intent a lot because I felt like we didn't spend enough time with Matt Drake. We were popping around to these other different people, and then the beginning of this book, we go back to being like a lot of first person Matt Drake.
Yep.
But again, Don is choosing to go away from that, and we do have scenes with the bad guys,
We do.
particularly.
We do.
So the bad guys are interesting to me. I don't think I can give them like a five, but I
Yeah.
don't think I can give them a little below a four. I don't know.
They're not the best part of this book.
Yeah, no, and they don't need to be
No, they
because like
don't.
just like the Taliban as a whole is, the villain, or like the fall of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That is like the overarching villain.
Yep.
But the actual player in I don't even remember his
It
name.
was Kari or
Kari, yeah,
yeah.
the one who like got taken that night,
Yep.
didn't get taken, was the one who sacrificed, had to spend 10 years in prison. He's the reason why all this is sort of unfolding.
And he's in touch with the Chinese, with
Right.
Fang, because you could also count Fang as a villain.
Yeah, and like that was fine. So it great? No. Was it
No.
bad? No. So
They're not memorable,
yeah, yeah,
but they're not bad villains. They're propelling the plot.
they're not bad villains. Yeah, but they're not like, oh my God, like they're
Yeah.
not like Mr. Suave.
Yeah, they don't rise above or stand out. I think that's a 4. I think what we're describing
Yeah,
sounds
I
like a
think it's a
4.
solid four, maybe 3.5.
It could be a 3.5. Yeah. Don't think you can go higher than 4 though. Like that is definitely and you know what? You're right. We don't need great villains and a lot of time with them because this is about the operators and the heroes. And I think Don very clearly wanted that to come through, which means our good guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, when have we not given a five on Good Guys? But if anything, if I wish I could give a six on Good
Let's
Guys for
give
this
more.
one.
I just want to give more. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and we read through the list of all of them already, but just
Perfect.
every single little character has, from the native Afghanists to the people back in the United States to the operators to the civilians to the military. Don does a great job. Good Guys, five out
Yeah.
of five.
It's perfect. How many times have we read a book that does too many characters or the team dynamic doesn't shine through?
Mm,
You give Brad Thor a different cast of characters every book or every 2 books, kind of this ragtag bunch he meets up with along the way. Some hit, some don't. Even at times, Mitch Rapp has to embed with different crews. Most of the time they hit, but he's been with a bunch of different crews. Some of them are good, some of them are all right. Here, everybody hits, and some of them get jumbled together, right? We just need cannon fodder, so we throw a guy's name out, give him a little half a backstory, and eventually he's going to die, or he's cannon fodder, or we just need him to accomplish something for the plot. No, here everybody has a purpose. There's no one who's extra for extra's sake.
yeah.
And they're all unique. Whether it's the SEALs, whether it's the Ranger, whether it's the Airborne, whether it's the Green Berets, whether it's the kid sitting at a desk, everyone has their purpose and it's perfect.
Yep.
5 out of 5 plus. Setting. Don's always been good at a setting. I got to be honest. He really has.
Yeah, so like we have a couple of different novels that have taken us to Afghanistan. Again, The Apostle sticks out to me
Mm-hmm.
as like hashing that really well. I'd say this is, pretty good. I like the fact of bringing in the different nuances of like, where they are, the Air Force Base,
Yep.
describing the roads to these various regions in the Taliban. I feel like we get a lot more about like Austin. We've
I
been
was going to
getting
say the
more and more
bars. Yeah.
about Austin as we learn more and more about Drake.
Yep.
And then just throwing in like the history, like we said, with the City of Screams,
Yep.
and really like putting me in, those mountains, was pretty good. So I don't know,
Yeah.
it's a solid like 4.5.
Yeah. I could go 5. I'm
Really?
trying to talk myself down from a 5, and I'm having a hard time. The bars are cool. They meet in a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
everything in Afghanistan hits. They're on that road. We even get a huge description of the Italians screwing up the road by
Yeah,
not really
of
knowing the
course the Italians.
geography and
Oh,
the
I like that
climate.
little barbecue place that he goes to, and he meets like the barbecue owner, and
That's right.
like to be able to sneak in and get up with those the CI,
To the back room.
the what are they called? Army CID
The
agents.
CID guys, yeah, because the
Yeah.
CID, the twos, I forgot about them early on. I like the CID woman who has to arrest Frodo. She's
Yeah, she
really
was.
like,
Yeah, oh, again, another like two random people that
yeah,
were interesting. They were just doing their job, like obviously,
yeah.
but
You could tell she was very torn by the whole just following orders
yeah.
syndrome.
Hmm.
She got it, and she really did get it, and she understood Drake's rampage he was on. Yeah, sneaking in there was cool. He's telling the guy about how to do the barbecue with the wood. I'm trying to talk myself down from a 5. I don't think I can. I'm giving it a 5.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. Oh, the dude in the airport, the chaos
Oh
where he
yeah,
meets
that was really
Joe
good.
and the briefing,
Yeah, just the description of like
the coffee.
what is going on, like everyone's running around, like
Yeah.
there's it's just mass chaos. No one's in charge. Yeah.
Oh, and the farm, dude, hiding behind the goats, coming out of that barn with the snipers, and I gotta go 5.
All right, you
Once
talk
we
me
throw
up.
that in,
You talk me up.
dude,
It's
the barn. Come on, man, that was your favorite action scene.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy that all that happens in the first third of the novel.
There's a
Maybe
lot that happens in this book.
this is a packed book. This is a wholesome book. It's crazy we both ripped through this in a matter of days because it's a wholesome thriller. It really is.
All right, what about the cover, man?
The cover. We're doing something different. There's no standing running man guy.
You can see a little bit, and I guess you can see their chins, the pilots, but yeah.
Ah. Trying
So
to see if we have a face problem, you are?
I think the helicopters are great.
I think it's great.
They play a supremely important role
Yep.
in terms of you have the helicopter scene with him when the bad helicopter was a stolen American helicopter comes after him.
Right.
You have the Americans that come to rescue him twice,
Yep.
and then obviously this is an Afghan city. I don't know if it's Kabul exactly, but
Yeah.
you have an Afghan city, and perfectly, it kind of like symbolizes what you could imagine is going on. And
Sure.
what I think, this is what I took it as, why you have the color scheme the way it is. He puts this one line when they leave the airport to go out on their mission to rescue the Afghan
Zafir.
Zafir. All missions started at like nautical sunset, or like it's not actual. It's like when the sun is physically set, but it's still light outside.
Right,
Like
right, right.
this is when he said that, and I thought about the cover. That's what I was envisioning. I don't know. You could maybe say this is more
When the sky
sunrise
turns
than
all those funky
sunset.
colors.
Right. That's exactly, like the sun is set, but because the sun it's still like illuminating the sky, and that's
Oh,
what
for sure.
kind of what I got here. So I really like this cover.
That's great. Yeah, dude, I didn't pick up on that little detail. It makes it even better. Yeah, I agree. The foreground of the city, you might even say the background, whether or not it's right there. I don't think it would be this close to an urban center like this, but that hilltop in the back kind of echoes the Citadel fight and the City of Screams out in the countryside. And maybe it's not right there outside of this particular city, but it doesn't matter because it echoes that. It recalls it. And then also Chopper, it's perfect, especially because this is Don Bentley's, I want to call it like a magnum opus. It's just his person. He's pouring.
He flew
out.
Helicopters.
Yeah, exactly. He
Yeah,
flew
yeah.
Apache. So it's pouring out what he wants to say about not only his own experience, but what he knows is the experience of thousands of people affected by our withdrawal. And so I think putting the Chopper front and center is just a perfect nod to that and who he is and what he wants to say about this thing.
It also symbolizes something that he references, and like what is the most quintessential image from our last withdrawal of Vietnam? It's the single Huey
That's right.
going off the embassy.
Taking off. Yeah.
And he says like there's no Huey, but there is an airplane. Like there are scenes of like the final airplane leaving
On
Afghanistan
the tarmac and everyone
tarmac.
running. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then the title. Put that together with the title.
Yeah,
Forgotten War.
The title is
It's
kick-ass.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
This 20-year war that was, and he even mentioned it. Like, was it worth it? Was it for anything?
Dude, that I forget when that conversation happens, but do you remember
With
that
the Uber
moment?
driver? With the Uber driver.
Oh my God, the Uber driver's another one. And
He's a
he even
veteran.
gives him his number. He's like, dude, I really
Talk to
need
me.
it.
Call me. Yeah.
Call me. Talk to somebody. If you don't have anybody, make that person me. Call me. When he does that with the Uber driver, taking him to that hangar, such a little moment, and it packs such a punch. And that's when he's like, was it all worth it? And he's asking himself that, as I'm sure he was, Don Bentley, as all of his friends were, a lot of people he knew were. And I just think that's an incredible thing to put into the mouths and thoughts of your characters that's so meaningful to you. So the title evokes that. So many people have so many reactions to that title or that idea of a forgotten war. Will the history books put it down that way? It's really hitting. So putting that in with the cover score, is it a 5? Again, do I got to talk myself down? With the title being so perfect for
with
this.
the title, I think I would give it cover alone. I think I would give it a 4.5. But with the title, I'm gonna give it a 5.
Yeah, because I've given it the benefit of a doubt in a few other areas. Let me go 4.5. If you do ask me what are my favorite covers of all time, I'm probably not going to point to this one, and I like to reserve my 5s for that. So I definitely can see a 5 here for the meaning behind it. But I was generous in some other areas, and I got to say, it's just not one of my favorite of all time. So 4.5, I think, is a fair place to settle there.
Okay. Well, I said my winner. Who's your winner?
God, I know you said yours. I said Don in the very beginning. I don't want to cop out, but I got to give it to the emotional resonance that his writing is going to have for so many people. How this book, I think, can help so many people, like the Uber driver, like Frodo, like the families. That's an amazing feat. If I had to give it to a character, though, because I've copped out a few times, so let me give it to a character. I got to give it to D. There's so many.
I was thinking about her too.
There's so many characters.
I hope she stays around.
Yeah, exactly.
Working with Matt, like
I want them to stay together. I think them on Blackwell's team was just, and he realizes sharing responsibilities with someone like her could be very important. Instead of him getting command of whatever Blackwell has in mind, and like you get to be the superhero of it all. I think he's going to want to share it with someone like her, bring her into the fold. Yeah, I think if I'm giving it to a character, it would definitely be her. And she got a lot of page time, which was cool. She stuck around. She didn't peace out. Some of the other minor characters were amazing, and I'm glad they were there. But D was one I was glad stuck around throughout. She was there for the long haul.
Very true. Very
Dude,
true.
These scores are shaping up to be something special. Chris, tell us what we ended up with here on Thriller Podcast.
You had a 48. And I had a 47.5.
Dude, hats off. Round of applause for that. Round of applause for Don. We got to clap that up.
That's freaking awesome, dude.
Well deserved. Well freaking deserved.
100% deserved. Well, next time, we're going to be bringing you some Mitch Rapp novels.
Mitch Rapp time.
Go check out No Limits, the Mitch Rapp podcast, where we'll be covering 2 Vince Flynn novels, in preparation, hopefully, for our chat with Don Bentley. Again, we need to thank our patrons, including our special operator, Sherry F., Jason C., our special agents, Ben, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Peggy, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, just let Matt be Matt.
Dude, a little postscript right here. I didn't want to say it while we were recording, but we can announce it here at the end. This book received the highest score combined either of us have given here on No Limits, the podcast, outside of Damascus Station. Besides that, this is the second highest rated book we have given on the scorecard. I just think that's an impressive feat, and it's well deserved. The highest so far of any thriller that we have given.
What did you give Sons of Valor to?
Sons of Valor came close. However, Sons of Valor 1 was our highest on the scorecard, 47 and 47 and a half.
Mm,
So this narrowly edges it out, 47 and a half and 48, so a full point higher than Sons of Valor 1, which
I
is
agree with
third.
that. Like comparing those two novels are very good.
Agreed. That's wow. That's impressive. And Takedown is probably right behind that in fourth place.
Another great novel. Yeah.
Takedown and Deadfall would be up there. We have not scored the Mitrap series on our score.
Yes.
There it is, Chris. The second highest rated book, and what I would consider the highest rated thriller so far that we've read.
Right. For sure.